Through the fall of 2019, the Walt Disney Animation Studio, founded in 1923 by Roy and Walt Disney, has released 58 films. The studio's next two feature films, Raya the Last Dragon and their 60th feature film, Encanto, are scheduled to be released in early and late 2021 respectively. These movies are of note because they are a return to status quo for the studio, releasing new IPs and stories instead of a sequel to a pre-existing property. Prior to 2018's Ralph Breaks the Internet, Wreck-It Ralph 2, and 2019's Frozen 2, the Walt Disney Animation Studio had previously produced only one theatrically released direct sequel to any of their previous films, 1990's The Rescuers Down Under, a sequel to 1977's The Rescuers. Unless you want to count Fantasia 2000 as a sequel to Fantasia, which I guess in the strictest sense of the term, feature film and sequel, it would be. Before the back-to-back releases of Wreck-It Ralph 2 and Frozen 2, Disney had released some pretty great Aladdin sequels and some wonderful Tinkerbell movies, and some less than stellar sequels through their direct-to-video market produced through the Disney Television Animation, Pixar, and Disney Toon Studio divisions.
We made it!
The Walt Disney Animation Studio seemingly never favored producing direct sequels, probably to help keep the stories told within the movies as self-contained narratives and allowing for more merchandising opportunities with the promise of new and different IPs and characters. This trend changed in 2018 with the release of Ralph Breaks the Internet and continued in 2019 with Frozen 2. It was unique for a company that didn't seem to like making theatrically released sequels to their movies. With the success of 2013's Frozen, a sequel was inevitable. In November of 2019, the Walt Disney Animation Studio released their third sequel, Frozen 2, maybe fourth if you include Fantasia 2000. While not as critically acclaimed as the first movie, Frozen 2 still managed to rake in over $1.4 billion in the global box office, while bringing fans back to the Kingdom of Arendelle. In my opinion, Frozen 2 is better music than its predecessor, but lacks storytelling depth that makes it feel like a complete improvement over the first movie. Spoilers ahead for Frozen, Frozen Fever, Olaf's Frozen Adventure, Frozen 2, and Once Upon a Snowman. Where Frozen 2 falls flat for me is that the primary setting of the story is tucked away within the enchanted forest of the Northuldra. The story doesn't necessarily build on the world surrounding Arendelle that was teased in the first movie. Yes, we get glimpses of the history of the world and how Arendellians have seemingly always had a fear of the magical. But throughout Frozen 2, we're traveling with Anna, Elsa, Olaf, Kristoff, and Sven, and we only ever get their perspectives on the events of the movie. We never really learn how the rest of the world within the Frozen universe works, making the second and seemingly last theatrical installment of the Frozen franchise feeling a bit hollow in its world building. Both Frozen movies are well balanced in their presentations of Elsa and Anna's stories. Both also end in a similar fashion, where you might think Elsa will use her powers to save the day, but it's the proverbial powerless Anna who makes the key sacrifice to save the day, sacrificing herself as an act of true love in the first movie, and destroying the dam in the enchanted forest, believing its destruction will wash Arendelle away to right the wrong done by her grandfather. As standalone stories, Frozen 1 and Frozen 2 are fun. But as a viewer and fan of these movies, I really would like to have seen more of the world around Arendelle and how they feel about magical persons, like Elsa, in the world. Frozen 2 works well on its own and as a sequel to the original movie, but could have had greater emotional impact if it were the last movie of a Frozen trilogy.
It began with two sisters, one born with magical powers, one born powerless. Oh no, too high! Blast! Well, at least they have their parents. Their parents are dead.
In the first movie, Anna is struck by Elsa's magic and taken to the trolls. Poppy asks the king a very important question and offers a small glimpse into the larger world of Frozen.
Your Majesty, born with the powers or cursed?
Born, and they're getting stronger.
This is where I think the movies could have expanded the surrounding world of Frozen. We all know the story of Frozen 1. Anna and Elsa are childhood besties until Elsa accidentally hits Anna with magic, causing her hair to get a single white highlight streak. Their parents misinterpret Poppy's warning about fear controlling Elsa and her powers. Anna falls in love with a man she just met. Elsa runs away and sings Let It Go. Anna goes on a wacky adventure with her new friends Kristoff, Sven, and Olaf. Anna gets magicked again, but this time in the heart, and only an act of true love can save her. Elsa gets captured by Hans and the Duke of Wesselton's goons. Hans reveals himself to be the villain of the movie.
Whoa, gross.
Anna sacrifices herself to save Elsa from Hans and his scheme, which ends up being a nice loophole in the act of true love thing, and essentially Anna saves herself. Elsa learns love is the greatest power of all and can now magic away the storm she created, and they all live happily ever after. Fast forward a few months and we enter the period of frozen fever. Elsa attempts to make up for all of Anna's previous birthdays she had missed because of her self-imposed isolation. Fast forward another few months to the events of Olaf's Frozen Adventure, and Anna and Elsa's first Christmas post the events of Frozen 1. Anna and Elsa attempt to surprise the citizens of Arendelle with a holiday feast in the castle. No one's interested because their holiday traditions are more important than a fancy party in the castle with the royal family. Olaf decides he needs to find some holiday traditions for Anna and Elsa and recruits Sven to go door to door with him and visit everyone in Arendelle to cherry pick the best traditions. Olaf gets lost in the woods after being charmingly rude to everyone in the kingdom. Anna and Elsa discover that the real holiday tradition is the friends they made along the way. Seriously, Olaf is their tradition and they literally made him as kids. Then we get a great music number to close it out. If you haven't heard When We're Together, pause this video right now and go listen to it. It is seriously really good. The events of Frozen 1, Frozen Fever, and Olaf's Frozen Adventure all take place within a year of each other. We know this from context clues within each of the short films. Frozen 2 skips ahead 3 years from the events of Frozen 1. We know this because Anna tells Lieutenant Matthias,
Our parents' ship went down in the Southern Sea 6 years ago.
The story of Frozen 1 starts with a time jump that states 3 years later after the end of the Do You Want to Build a Snowman montage. Complex algebraic equations calculate to this meaning 6 years have passed from the time Anna and Elsa's parents died to them meeting Lieutenant Matthias in the Enchanted Forest in Frozen 2. This 6-year gap leaves the question what happened in that time between Olaf's Frozen Adventure and the start of Frozen 2.
What year is it?
Frozen 2 would have you believe pretty much nothing has happened in the 3 years since Frozen 1. Arendelle's doing just fine, Elsa's gained a better grasp of her powers, but is also getting bored. Anna and Kristoff are doing great, and Olaf has learned to read and has received some permafrost from Elsa, so he no longer needs his little flurry cloud to keep him from melting. The 2.5-year gap between Olaf's Frozen Adventure and Frozen 2 is where I'm proposing a strong world-building sequel that takes place between Frozen 1 and what is Frozen 2. How does the world outside of Arendelle feel about a magical person ruling a kingdom?
Monster!
There is an Easter egg in Frozen 1 where we see Rapunzel and Eugene show up for Elsa's coronation. But for the sake of argument, let's assume that this is just an Easter egg. What is the difference between someone being born with powers and being cursed with powers? In my proposed in-between-quel, the story picks up 1 year after the events of Frozen 1. This allows for Frozen Fever and Olaf's Frozen Adventure to happen without any continuity errors. Anna and Elsa are celebrating 1 year of Elsa's official rule as queen and the palace gates being open. Anna and Kristoff are entering a stage in their relationship where they need to decide if they're in it for the long haul or if the fact that Anna's a princess requires her to end their relationship.
You're a princess. You don't have to settle.
Hans returns to Arendelle.
Wait, what?
Under the guise of being forced to apologize on behalf of himself and his family. Hans reveals that his attempted coup of the previous year has dishonored the Southern Isles, and they have been experiencing hardships with surrounding kingdoms. Hans is once again lying, and is using the apology as an excuse to gain access to Arendelle. He is suffering from Loki and Marvel's Avengers syndrome.
Loki.
I'm giving the people what they want.
Hans believes that through his subterfuge in Frozen 1, that he is the rightful king of Arendelle and has come to challenge for his throne, and that Anna is still his fiancée.
What?
However, Hans knows that with Elsa's powers, he can't defeat her in any kind of combat or outright conflict, so he goes out searching for a magical MacGuffin that will endow him with magic and will allow him to challenge Elsa. This is where we would get a bit more world building. By voluntarily being cursed with magic, Hans becomes physically transformed, like how the spirits physically transformed humans in The Legend of Korra.
I really hate humans!
The Arendelle Five, Anna, Elsa, Olaf, Kristoff, and Sven, and Hans duke it out, and Hans is eventually defeated through them working together.
Oh, I love happy happy endings.
Han's hoping to invade and take control of Arendelle is the primary conflict of the film, but the central theme of the movie would be showing how strong the bond between the chosen family that Anna and Elsa have created with Kristoff, Sven, and Olaf.
I owe you a sled.
In Frozen 1, we get the beginning of Anna and Kristoff's relationship, and in Frozen 2, we see that culminate in Kristoff proposing. A few times.
Oh, come on.
You know, under different circumstances, this would be a, pretty romantic place.
Princess Anna of Arendelle, my feisty, fearless, ginger-sweet love. Will you marry me?
No.
There is one more thing. Anna, you are the most extraordinary person I've ever known. I love you with all I am. Will you marry me?
No.
With the proposed filler movie, I would like to see more interactions with Kristoff and Elsa, building their relationship around their shared love for Anna. The subplot around Anna and Kristoff's relationship could be resolved with Elsa revealing that their mother, Queen Iduna, was not from a royal line and their father married her for love, because Arendelle has never had a must-marry-a-prince rule. This would give Anna and Kristoff their long-term relationship reason to move forward, and would tease the reveal of the mother being from Northuldra in the next movie. With the benefit of foresight and how what would become Frozen 3 plays out, the proposed Frozen 2 could end with Hans having been defeated and the family of Anna, Elsa, Olaf, Kristoff, and Sven reunited and more bonded than ever. They return to the castle for a well-deserved rest. Elsa puts her head down on her pillow, closes her eyes, and then we hear the voice. This tease would also add answers to how long Elsa's been hearing the voice, and acts as a starting point to where she finally cracks and begins to acknowledge the voice with Into the Unknown. And you know what? Let's throw a bigger role for Wandering Oak in. He's one of the best parts of the first movie.
You know what? I like you.
The main point with this in-between cool idea is to flesh out more of the world surrounding the Kingdom of Arendelle and the rules of how magic works in this universe. Frozen 2 works well enough as a sequel, as well as its own movie. I just would have liked to have seen more follow-through on certain aspects of the world created through context clues in the first movie. What did you think of the Frozen movies? Would you have liked to have seen the franchise be turned into a trilogy, where we get to see more of the world? Or do you think 2 movies were enough? Or do you think there is still a 3rd movie to be made? Where do you think that movie would go? I would love to hear some more ideas and what you think of the Frozen franchise in general. I know there's going to be some Tangled is better than Frozen, I agree, but that's not the point of this video. A big thanks to Mark Fleetwood from the Planet Broadcasting Great Mates group for helping edit this video.
What can I say except you're welcome?
I truly appreciate you and the time you put into making this video happen.
Oh, gosh.
You can follow me on Twitter at Josh_Scar and this YouTube channel. You can also find the YouTube channel on Twitter at Talking Smack Pod, as well as our Facebook page. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch, and you have yourself a great day.